The state's number one responsibility is to make sure to protect its citizens, and that's not what they're doing right now.
Crime victims, advocates, elected officials, and PORAC stand together to protect California's communities, to advance policies that will create fewer victims, not more.
We have a handful of lawmakers that seem to be intent on creating more victims of crime. And you look no further than some of these bills that are being authored that are absolutely horrible for public safety and safe communities.
Lawmakers have a duty to protect the public, and PORAC is here to support them, to serve as a resource. When public safety policies are crafted without considering consequences, what happens inside our capital can increase crime out on our streets, and recent statistics show violent crime is up in California.
Victims' voices need to be heard. And the troubling thing about the most recent criminal justice reforms in the last 10 years is victims' voices were never part of the conversation, and we are now having these horrible side effects as a result of victims not being heard.
PORAC is pushing back against bills that prioritize the rights of criminals over the rights of victims, including a 2023 bill that aimed to release convicted killers who were sentenced to life without parole.
We're supporting the victims and making sure that they get the justice they deserve and that the criminals are being held accountable for the crimes that they've committed.
My mother begged and pleaded for her life and the life of her children. You were sentenced by a judge. You were sentenced by a jury of your peers. Isn't that what the judicial system is about? Right now, it's a slap in the face.
The pendulum has really changed where the perpetrators of these crimes are now considered victims. And that's not the issue. When you murder someone, that's the ultimate crime. It doesn't matter who you are, what your race is, your religion, you are a murderer.
Lost in the noise of anti-police rhetoric is the fundamental role peace officers play to keep us safe. PORAC, the largest law enforcement organization in California, is bringing diverse leaders together to change the conversation, advocating for meaningful criminal justice reforms with public safety and crime victims at the forefront.
It's super important that we hear the voices of the families of the victims that have suffered. Their voices matter. Their stories matter. And what has happened to them matters.
In California, it's time to balance the scales of justice, to consider the weight trauma victims and their families are forced to carry for the rest of their lives, to pass laws that make communities safer.
Our primary duty and goal is to keep our communities safe. If you're not supporting the victims, that means you're supporting criminals. Criminals exploit and they harm communities.
We all know that the Constitution mandates that government's number one duty is public safety. And that means keeping our communities safe. That means providing for our victims. That means having them heard. And they need to balance our system.